Welcome to a special icy and sporty episode here with the Volkswagen T-Roc R. We're up in the north of Sweden, near Arvidsjaur, and this one here is the sports performance SUV by Volkswagen. Well, we're going to find out how this one performs on snow and ice, and also how is it in comparison to the Golf R, and we'll solve that very interesting question. Is that one maybe even sportier or better or faster than the Golf R here on our frozen lake? That will be very interesting, I can promise you. Here in Autogefuehl, an exterior, interior and a fun driving experience. Thomas in front of the camera, Jonas behind, and please bring us the intro magic in full HD, full screen and full length. Let's go! Same as the Golf R, the T-Roc R also gets this lapis blue special R paint. And of course the sporty R version here with a sportier lower bumper in black contrast. Glossy, then the daytime running light are here in a vertical way. That's also special. And this, let's say, honeycomb structure style front grille, so everything sportier. Yeah, we got those hinges here front and back, so we can also be pulled out of the snow. That won't happen today. No, it won't. It won't. Cannot promise. We'll see about that one later. So a normal T-Roc would come with stand halogen lamps and optional LED, but here in the R version, at least LED also for the main headlamp unit is standard. There are some features which are not standard even with the R version, but it does already come with some more equipment. So overall, a quite strong look. And again, this one here, the T-Roc, is 2 centimeters higher than a normal Golf. But then as the R version, it's 2 centimeters lower again. So the same height as a normal Golf. And then there's a difference of about 2 centimeters to a Golf R. So we'll see how that one plays out, because the car is of course higher than the Golf R. How does that one have an impact on driving here on snow and ice? Let's see. 4.23 meters, 13'9" or 166 inches is the length of the VW T-Roc, and it's the same of course also for the R version. And you can see this R version not only sits lower, as I told you, also have the R badge right there. Still, it comes with those plastic fenders around the wheel arches, so there is still this off-road look. And I think they also did that the difference to the Golf R is still there, because when you put the T-Roc lower and also have painted wheel arches, it might look too much Golf R alike. That could be one reason. There will of course also be a Golf R of the new Golf 8 generation. We'll keep you updated with that. Usually the T-Roc R comes with 18-inch wheels, and then option you can even get 19. Since we have those winter tires here with studs, 400 nails or studs per tire, by the way. Pretty interesting. In this case, you can put more or less. It depends on the tire size. But when you pick those ones here, they're 17-inch with the winter tires, so smaller than you would actually get one. Then you only need 400. For bigger tires, you would need more. And the 19-inch wheels, they're 235. So that would be actually pretty big here for snow and ice. Smaller ones you also see at the rally, like Rally Finland, for example. Then also they use smaller tires always. Other than that, the T-Roc R, black windows. Then here you got this chrome stripe that goes a little bit more down, but you still have those compact dimensions, and that's also what making this car so popular on the market, because there's reasonable space on the inside. We're going to show that to you as well, but still you can't find parking spots. You have this upright seating position as an SUV, but you already have a lot of power under the hood, and we'll of course use that one here today. In the rear we see a typical compact hatch style, And I really like it when there's some snow in the car. It just, it's a little bit special. You can also check out our dry episode. We filmed near Nice, where we also really hit the roads and launch control and so on and so on. You can also compare that. I think it's really cool to see both episodes, actually. The logo here flips for the trunk or also for the rear view camera. Here again, those, emergency hinges. I hope that Touareg will not pull us out at some time. And then in this car, the optional Akrapovic exhaust is mounted. You already hear it right now because the car needs to be kept running here when it's really, really cold. Otherwise, there could be problems to start it again. Has nothing to do with this special car. It's just when it's super, super cold. Our viewers from, up in the north will know that you just leave the car basically running all the time, unless you have maybe in a heated garage or something. Well, and then this optional Akrapovic exhaust, about 3,700 euros. That's a German list price, so pretty pricey. But of course, it adds that very special sound and is available here for the T-Roc R and also for the Golf R. What do we have under the hood? First of all, no hydraulic struts like in the Golf R of the MK7. But you all know the Golf 8 also won't have hydraulic struts. Well, this one here, 2-liter 4-cylinder turbo petrol engine, 300 horsepower, 400 newton meters of torque. In this case, only 7-speed DSG, dual clutch transmission. No manual available as in the current Golf R MK7. There you have the choice. Actually, here you don't. And all-wheel drive is front plus rear on demand. So before there's slip even, more power is transported to the rear wheels. It's more anticipating. That's also a big difference to the Golf R. This one here is an updated system, so it reacts earlier and sends more stuff, more torque to the rear wheels. And it also depends on the driving mode. So in the sports mode, for example, there's already a little bit more to the rear wheels. In the T-Roc R, there's in general more power to the rear wheels. And especially in the off-road mode, there's even more power to the rear wheels. So we will probably use the off-road mode here on snow and ice today to get it even sportier. That's definitely a very interesting aspect, and we'll see how that one plays out, if this one will also be an advantage to the Golf R here, for example, when we also drove it on the frozen lake. So very interesting aspects to come. And by the way, when we talk about technology, the DCC, the dynamic chassis control, that's the adaptive suspension, is also optionally available for the T-Roc R. You do not have to get it, but I strongly recommend it because otherwise the suspension might be too stiff. And with the DCC, you're always a little bit flexible. And by the way, why are manufacturers testing those cars here up on the snow and ice? Well, it's also a durability test, yes. For example, also the all-wheel drive systems. There's a clutch. And might it overheat? Of course, the parts are also being cooled and so on. But indeed, in the past, that maybe have some problems, but like in the MK7, we also talked to the guys who are up here like half a year or something, and with the latest generation here in the Golf 7, for example, Golf 7R, they never had any problems with the clutch overheating or something, and that's really astonishing because usually you say, when you use all-wheel drive all the time, then you need a permanent all-wheel drive and not this on-demand system, but obviously in this generation, then it works very, very well. And also, what else? There's this turbo, like sitting in this area here and behind the engine. And like in the very, very early stage of development of past generations, the turbo was actually hanging at like a plastic foundation. And at some point, all the, when they did the measurements, that was going like in spikes all the way up. And what happened there? And it actually melted, the plastic hanger. So then they said, when we know that it's getting so hot, so we can see at nighttime when the turbo has been used by race driver, for example, the turbo really glows. It's really cool. And so they did actually change the part to a metal, metal foundation to hold the turbo. And so this was, for example, one development that was done here in snow and ice, where then also the normal customer, even if that, if he or she is not using those parts that extremely, really profits from development that is done here under extreme conditions. Thomas the Snowman is showing you the interior of the T-Roc R. But first of all, isn't that cool after we did some drifting action, how everything is covered then in snow right here? That looks amazing, right? Especially the side mirror here. Like when you have this powder snow on the side mirror. Yeah, it looks amazing, but of course, not too good for the visibility, isn't it? Well, but interesting, of course, the door closing sound when it's all snowed in. Delicious. So that's the cool thing about the Golf or the T-Roc R, or the T-Roc in general. Great door closing sound. Sounds like rich, but not in a money sense rich, but more like rich, voluminous, full, and so on. Good. So, interior of the door, and that's then again something not so good. This is hard pack, even in the T-Roc R, and I talked to the product managers and they said they cannot change it as the R GmbH because that, needs to be done for the whole vehicle lineup. Maybe for the facelift at some point, I hope so, but they cannot change it. What they can do is, for example, offer those, like the interior deco elements. Standard in the T-Roc R, they would come with glossy black. This one is a matte blue, and you see, no, it does not really fit to the lapis blue color. They said they oriented that on that, but didn't really work. But I think the main problem is, this is metallic, and this is a matte blue, so it's really hard to match the colors then. However, the blue still looks quite fancy. The dashboard, sadly, again, all hard pack, so those two things. I mean, yeah, a T-Roc in general, 20k something, that's okay. Then a full spec one, 40k, and then the T-Roc R, 44k. That's even a couple of €1,000 less expensive than the Golf R, by the way. But of course, spec'd all the way as it is here, then close to 50k as well. And for that, we should expect also soft touch materials on the dashboard at the inside of the door. Let's see what the facelift brings at some point. Steering wheel with the R logo and flat bottom. Sporty, pretty cool. The active info display, by the way, those digital instruments, they come standard for the T-Roc R. So at least this is then the standard equipment. The seats, in this case here, the not necessary animal skin seats, which are also not good for those conditions because they are really cold in winter times then. So we also have, as standard, that's of course good, the fabric seat with Alcantara inserts. We filmed them earlier at our first review, and of course, just stick with the standard seats, save money, have it cool in summer and warm in winter, and also better grip, especially in racy situations when you have fabric and Alcantara surfaces. Now let's get inside, and you might remember this one here, the T-Roc sits higher than the Golf, and T-Roc R same as the Golf, but the T-Roc R then still higher as the Golf R. Yeah, it's not that easy, but I think you got that. And this one has the panoramic roof. You can also get one without. And still some headroom left with 1.86 m or 6'1". And sometimes you can also pump it a little bit up, to make it more upright as for the seating position. And indeed, it is a little bit more comfortable than in the Golf R, because in the Golf R you sit a little bit lower, unless you really want that sportier position. But more and more people want to sit a little bit more comfortable and still have the same power. As for power, by the way, 4.8 seconds, 0 to 100 kilometers or 62 miles an hour acceleration here. 4.6 for the Golf R. So it's 4.8 versus 4.6. So the Golf R, when it's dry, then has a little bit more drive, better wind coefficient. Better wind coefficient. Yeah, that's a tough one, right? Especially when you're German. So steering wheel up and down, out and in, so it's a good process. You can find a good position here to steer. That's cool, and in general, as I said, comfortable, but you still feel you are in a compact hatch by the Volkswagen AG, and I think you know what you get. So the interior overview, again, no way in a 50k car. No way. But the blue is actually quite nice, you see, quite fancy. It has a Golf layout. A lot of parts are being shared with the Golf, but also with the Polo, so more to that. Again, this compact steering wheel, white contour stitches, honeycomb structure here at the inside. That's really nice. Also, the quality of the buttons here, for example, at the steering wheel. This is really very good. And a straightforward design here also with a separate climate unit. I like to have that. It doesn't have to be over-engineered like in the Golf MK8. I still like to be able to also activate the seat heating in a straightforward way. Well, what's your take on that? Soon more details to those screens. just basic information. 6.5 would be standard, and optional this one, the 8-inch screen. Sadly, doesn't come standard equipped with the 8-inch screen. I think they should have also included that in the standard equipment with the T-Roc R. But even the biggest one has here still a volume knob and a zoom-in knob for the GPS. I think that's good. Then if we move further down, we have an inductive charging pad for the phone, but when you use Apple CarPlay or Android Auto, you use the normal USB-A devices. 2 there are anyway, start-stop button, then the 7-speed DSG shifting lever, no manual available. And then in the lower part there is this drive mode selector, where we can go in the off-road mode, for example, or go to the normal driving modes and then pick, for example, also the race mode and so on. And the ESC can be deactivated not only in the screen but also with a separate button. And then there are non-adaptive cup holders in the lower part, electric handbrake, and then there's a leatherette cover here for the armrest. And when you put that one up, there's just a little cubby hole underneath, but with nothing to charge or so. So overall, everything is hard plastic, in those areas where you don't touch it regularly. Yeah. This is a big difference to the Golf 7 MK7 interior. Golf interior is definitely better if you compare those interior-wise. So digital instruments are controlled via the steering wheel, and you can also have the GPS right here. So that's of course cool, flexible with those digital instruments. You can change the view that you have the GPS all over the place. Now we can see we are on that lake, indeed on that lake. Yeah, that's always a little bit scary, but there's also a lot of preparation done that it actually works. So that's as for the digital instruments. Again, changing the view back if you want, for example, the classic view, or again without the GPS, you're pretty flexible and a good clear view. And here's the catch for this system, which has the software of the Polo and not from the Golf. You can only display the map either left or right. So I have to switch it around, and then it's not in the digital instruments anymore, but just here. They say the software or the hardware even would not be capable of that processor, power-wise. Yeah, I don't know. You can zoom in and out like this. That's actually pretty cool. Or still use this knob. That's also really helpful, especially while driving. So it's a straightforward system. I like it. The software is great. It's just, it should be able to display it left and right at the same time. And it was the same case in the Golf, in the Passat, with the older active info display. Yeah, I'm not sure why they didn't go for the system right here. Probably cost savings, but I mean, come on. So then the app view here for the Apple CarPlay and Android Auto fills out the whole screen. That's actually quite cool. And let's listen to what Gareth Emery has to say about this with the Beat sound system. And it's pretty cool. Sounds quite rich. Nice surround sound. So for a compact vehicle, it's actually quite nice. And you see the Apple CarPlay integration is quite cool. And here we have the performance monitor, for example. We can also see here how the kilowatts go up, and of course also G-force meter. So you can have some nice selections right there. Also an off-road view, since this is a potential soft off-road car, like the degrees here of tires here. 31 is the maximum. 31 left, 31 right. So can play around with this one a little bit. Again, the software of the system is actually quite cool. Easy to get along with that. Again, the biggest disappointment is definitely with this map view. Yeah, let's see if this could also be something to be addressed with a later facelift. Well, what about the rear compartment? Again, so cool when it's all snowed in. So what happened? And by the way, it's also good, those tests, that the doors open, when they are all snowed in. Yeah, oh, some cool effect. Breaking the ice. That's a real icebreaker here. Oh, some snow now on the seats. Too bad. But that's what's happening. Hey Jonas, what did you do with the co-driver seat? Pushed it all the way back? Yeah. But I have my seat as I would be driving. Hardback, of course, here at the back door. Oh, and you see you still have the black inserts here at the rear. You don't have the blue insert at the rear. They could have put the blue ones there, couldn't they? Well, now getting inside, and the shoe tab is today even more important to get all the snows from the shoes. And it's compact hatch standard. You do fit you with 4 adults, yes. but not too much legroom, although I had the steering wheel all the way out, so I could a little bit go backwards with the seat, so I could also push the seat a little bit more forward. That would also work. I could still drive that. So 4 adults do work, but not, in an abundant way. Headroom does exactly fit, also with my beanie. And if I would not have the panoramic roof, there would be a little bit more headroom. Come closer for the panoramic roof, because that's quite cool. We won't open that here at the moment, because it might get wet then. But you can open it all over the place, almost. So like up till here. That's pretty cool. And even if it's closed, it's leaving more light in the interior. And that's, of course, pretty nice. Isofix at the outside of the seats. It's supposed to snow out water. So Isofix right there, and then we also have this armrest like this with some cup holders, but they're not adaptive, and a ski hatch, talking about snow. And we already flipped the seats right from here, and then we can also reach through the trunk. We'll soon take a look at that top tether at the back part, by the way, if you're interested. And well, in the middle console here, there's just a 12-volt power supply. There's no USB and no additional USB charging right here. So now to the rear hatch, and a lot to discover here. First of all snowed in now. That's pretty cool after some drifting actions. Oh, it's really like an iced hinge right here. Wow, it's all the way ice now. Wow. So that's where we could be, pulled out actually. So if we would land in the snow very bad, it did not happen today. So yeah. Kind of proud of that, definitely. So, big question was, for example, does the rear view camera, which is hidden behind the logo, flip even when it's like snow and ice? Yes, it always worked actually, so that was pretty cool. And you see it still works also when I flip it here. So they thought about that. It's also experience to be gotten here. Also taking a short look at it while it's all empty. 445 liters is the capacity. So, almost 80 centimeter in length. And the width is, in the front here, more than a meter. And if we move close to the wheel arches, then it's exactly a meter. And the height here to the cover is about 40 centimeters. You can see it does fit with a backpack upright. And then, of course, we can also flip those seats, as I showed you earlier. Not necessarily where Jonas was seating. So, yeah, that way it works. And you can see this 1/3, 2/3 split, or you can also use the ski hatch. That's of course possible. And if we go all the way through with the measuring stick, then it's to my front seat, approximately a little bit more than 1.50 meters. So you're quite flexible. It's not too much of a big difference to the Golf. It's compact hatch style. That's it basically. So, and underneath this cover here, you can put sound system or also a replacement tire. That would be possible. I'm really realizing that like those very cold temperatures, they sometimes freeze your mouth, that you have automatically more slip of tongue, So sorry for that. It's the weather. Welcome to Thomas's Ice Driving Lounge with the new Volkswagen T-Roc R, and we're starting here on this first ice track, and we'll talk about different driving modes. We'll talk about the comparison to the Golf R, and camera equipment flying around already. And we have the G-force monitor here as well. And of course, we're also going to talk about the general sporty features here of the T-Roc R. And first of all, I'll start with the, let's say, customer setup with ESP on, electronic stability control on. And the funny thing is, it really drives like on rails, Even if you, enter the corner a little bit too fast, here, car is braking out, it's being caught in, and I don't have to work so much with the steering wheel. Even if I hit the throttle a little bit harder, everything is fine. Here, I slide out a little bit, then the individual wheel is being reduced in speed, and you're actually quite safe, although we're driving on ice. But we have studded tires, so we have about, ice is less grip, of course, then with studded tires. The overall result here is 50% grip, as we would have on the dry asphalt. So that's really cool, and of course it's a safe thing to know. Nevertheless, you cannot, that's, when you put the wipers here, but sometimes, you know, then it's snowing a little bit and we have to do the wipers. So still you have to maintain a certain speed. You cannot defy the laws of physics. So then we have the ESC Sport. That is allowing us a little bit of play, for example, and then we can also put this D, the shifting lever, to the M mode. Then we are staying in the different gears. We can also use the shifting pedals. That's of course a lot of fun. And when, for example, I'm here at the outs of the corner and accelerate out just a little bit, then I can slide out just a little bit with the ESC Sport. So that means with the ESC Sport you can have a little bit of fun without, you know, doing everything on your own. You still have somewhat of a safety net here, this very close cornering here. I can play with the rear of the vehicle, no problem. Front wheel drive plus rear on demand, but we already know, told you earlier, the T-Roc R sets more power to the rear wheels than the Golf R, or let's say, like not in maximum, but maximum is 50-50, but earlier, that's the thing. So, and even more we feel it, of course, when we put the ESC off. And let's say we have two special modes as well we can test, and one is race. Then we have also the best sound, sound. Interesting word. Exhaust sound, sound. Cool. So then we have in the race mode the best sound, so to say. And now we want to hold this ESC button. So first activate, and then we hold it, and then there we go. Now, so there's also this warning sign. That means now it's completely off and I can really hammer the throttle. And I also have it on the M shifting mode. So the thing is, even in the race mode, after a while, like I think it's like 6,000 RPM, the car will still shift up itself. This can be changed, more to that very soon. First of all, now in the race mode with the ESC off, then I can really play around with the car. Here the rear comes out, and I really feel that there is earlier, there it was, a little bit over 6,000 RPMs, then the car was shifting itself from second gear to third gear. So indeed, if you compare it to the Golf R, I feel there's a little bit earlier torque on the rear axle, and that's of course really helpful here when doing some drifting and stuff. And in off-road situations, it would also be definitely helpful. So this is another development they made right here. And this is also one thing that leads to the VW T-Roc R being possibly a little bit faster here on those IS tracks. Acceleration figures, 4.8 seconds for this one here to 100 kilometers an hour in dry conditions, and 4.6 for the Golf R. So the Golf R, also with the better wind efficiency, is better on the dry track than here. Thing is really, we are also a little bit higher, so it's on the one hand a little bit more comfortable, you know, holding the drift a little bit more, out of the corner, accelerate, making the car stable again also when it's straight. This is also a very nice corner because it opens up, so I can hold the drift right here, longer time, a little bit too close. Now it's another corner at the end of this one. It's really a lot of fun. And I mean, you see, I'm not attacking the track too hard, because that's the thing about driving on the ice. You're not faster when you're more spectacular. Yeah, maybe Colin McRae would have to say a word about that, or Carlos Sainz. They have quite aggressive driving styles, of course, or they had. Not driving the WRC, Colin McRae, of course, they had for a very long time now, but like one of the most spectacular rally drivers of all time. And then you compare Sebastian Loeb, for example, who introduced a very unspectacular style, but was way faster than everyone else. So that's the thing. But here, a lot of fun in the race mode, and I can play around with the vehicle, and it does not feel like a front-wheel drive vehicle. Well, it is an all-wheel drive car, yes, but since there's so early torque on the rear wheels due to this clutch, I can really have a lot of fun and, you know, really drive all-wheel drive focused, and that's really cool. So another difference to the Golf R is I sit higher a little bit, and first of all, let's say just seating position-wise, that's more comfortable. So that's quite fine. And I mean, we have a little bit more shaking up, you know, of the car. You very close corner, accelerating out, a lot of fun. Now in the S corner, putting the car to the left and the right again, really a lot of fun. Now I'm really could initiate this drift here, really cool. And you see I'm steering and counter steering, but here in this case I also steer the car with the throttle a little bit. So sometimes I keep the steering wheel straight and just control the throttle, and thereby can control what the car does. Here, for example, you see, keep the steering wheel quite stable, and then just decide with the throttle what I want to do, if I want to turn the rear a little bit more around or not. So that's a lot of fun, definitely. Really so cool to do this ice driving, and they also offer that one here for customers as well. So it's quite expensive, yes, but like once in a lifetime, I think it's worth it to do it, definitely. So back to the difference, Golf R and T-Roc R. So because the car sits a little bit higher, it leans a little bit more into the corners, and you would say on a dry racetrack that's a bad thing. But here it's actually a good thing, because I get a little bit more weight on the outside wheels, and that gives me more traction. So this again another effect that leads to the VW T-Roc R possibly being a little bit faster than the Golf R here on the ice. And the funny thing is, because the Golf R sits lower and is the Golf R, and it's of course just a compact hot hatch and so on, it feels sportier, it feels racier. It just feels, when you sit in it. And however, this one here, it is actually racier on snow and ice, although it doesn't feel like this, and exactly mainly those two reasons. You have a little bit more grip on the outside wheels. Now a little fun here again in this very tight corner S combination. And then again, that the, and that can also happen when you get a little bit too much to the outside. It has been snowing a lot, therefore the track is very tight. So very narrow, don't have too much track to work with. But at least those snow walls, like the first centimeters, they are pretty soft, so that's no problem when we hit something. And then we can also go in drift. It's like 60 kilometers an hour on this drift now, by the way, so this can get quite ugly when it gets out of control. Therefore you see that while I'm drifting, I'm quite often not doing too much on the steering, because that would be too hectic and would bring the car out of balance. So you have to be a smooth belay rather than really attacking and forcing the issue. So which one would I now prefer, Golf R or T-Roc R? That's a tough question. And maybe we can solve this question by going to the off-road mode, because that's something else we can do. So, it's special about this car, the Golf R does not have that off-road mode for the SUV. And then again, we have to newly deactivate the stability control, which you should never do on public roads, by the way, never do that. So it's just for the off-road situations, and if you are on a closed track. And now the thing is, in the off-road mode, there's even earlier torque to the rear wheels. So this can help us to be racier. And the thing is, in the sport mode, the steering is heavier. It gives me more feedback, more resistance. Here in the off-road mode, the steering is pretty light, which would be good for normal off-road situations. Here I have to say, I like a little bit more feedback from the steering wheel better, because it's a slick ground, so there's not too much feedback from the steering wheel anyway. And well, where does that lead to? You steer a little bit too much. So in the race mode, you steer less because you have more resistance. And here in the off-road mode, you have to pay attention that you don't steer too much, because the steering wheel is lighter. And you can see here, more torque to the rear wheels. Well, let's say even earlier torque to the rear wheels. And there's another big difference now in the off-road mode. It will not shift up itself. So here now I can play a little bit more. Also the steering wheel is then, let's say, more aggressive because it is lighter. Out of the corners, drifting out. And yeah, the car feels more loose in this off-road mode. Also when I'm here now in those higher speed areas, almost getting to 90 kilometers here on this somewhat straight, so on. So when you have a lot of experience, you can do more with this off-road mode even. And this is also another differentiation to the Golf R, where especially an expert can be indeed faster than with the Golf R. very, very interesting. But again, on dry racetrack, the Golf R will beat the T-Roc R. But here on snow and ice, really surprising find that theoretically the T-Roc R can be faster. Although because it sits higher, it never feels like this. So again, those three elements, sitting higher, leaning to the corners, more pressure on the outside wheels helps us. Then, in general, earlier distribution to the rear wheels from the power. And then this off-road mode, which is doing even more to the rear wheels and earlier, and also keeping the car in the gear, then you control it a little bit better. So even though when I hit 6,000 RPMs, a little bit more, it will stay in the second gear. This is so much fun, this corner here. And then taking this S combination, you can see here, the off-road mode just leads me to being a little bit more aggressive with the car because I steer a little bit more and there's even more slip. Here I can stay at the inside with the front here. Always look ahead where you're going. Taking a little bit of snow plow at the rear. I always have to think about the Simpsons episode where Homer does this snow plowing business, you know? You remember that? Now again, this long corner where you can hold the drift a little bit longer. But sometimes, you know, at the outs of the corner, you just initiate the second one to be really safe. Like a professional rally driver could also do it in one. Of course, I mean, I have like 7 years of experience here now on the track. And this makes a difference, yes. But still, when you're like a professional rally driver and doing this all day, then of course it's still a huge difference even to someone who has like a lot of experience. So here this corner is really tight. But yeah, definitely a lot of fun here with the T-Roc R. I mean, we talked about the differences now in detail, Golf R, T-Roc R, and I mean, they do not feel like completely separate cars. And they, of course, share so many parts, so many things are different. So it won't be that you say like, that's like another world. But there are those slight differences and, you know, you do feel them the more you drive them. And now, the final question. Which one would I prefer? What do you think, Jonas? Golf R, T-Roc R, last year the Golf R. I mean, for the road, I like the T-Roc because it's hit a little bit higher and it's a little bit more comfortable. And like this off-road feature here is really interesting. Oh, by the way, now in the off-road mode, we don't have like the best exhaust sound. So that's maybe like a disadvantage. We do have that in the race mode. Jonas also, we don't know. So, So the T-Roc R offers you a little bit more possibilities because of those, let's say, technology, let's say, differences, slight differences. Yeah, where they go. It's like the best thing or the best sign is always when you can look out of the side window that you're going forward. You know, that's like now. That's always cool. I don't know. Maybe just like here, maybe still the Golf R.
I would go for the T-Roc R.
Jonas would go for the T-Roc R. Interesting. Maybe is it better like as a passenger? Is it more comfortable as a passenger? Or how would you say?
No, just think you're more flexible because it's a little bit higher, and because of off-road mode you could also go a little bit more off-road.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
One step, and the driving is so similar. So
yeah. So let's say on paper, this car here is more at home at where we are at the moment, and the Golf R is more at home on the dry racetrack. That's definitely for sure. Just emotionally, I think I would still stick with the Golf R somehow. I don't know. What about you guys? And by the way, here, no manual available. I would still pick the Golf R with the DSG for everyday driving life. But of course, the possibility of driving manual would be something that still speaks for the Golf R. But that's all talking about the MK7. The MK8 of the Golf R will be coming up. And as I heard, there will not be a manual gearbox for most countries. But the US is supposed to get the Golf R MK8 still with the manual gearbox. That's what I heard, but psst, don't tell anyone yet. Just here on the Autogefuehl community. That's why I also hid this information at the end of the driving part. So everyone who watched everything until now, thumbs up for you guys. And tell me your pick for today. And also compare the other Golf R episode. Which one shall it be? Well, and one thing is of course missing. We could go to another track, or we could do endless drifts on our snow circles. Well, what about this ice circle? So what we do here is we use steering and throttle, and I mean you can do either or. So you can, for example, here I hold the steering quite steady, and again using the throttle, giving a little bit more when I see that now I'm heading towards the inside of the corner, hitting a little bit more throttle, then I'm going to the outside again, then I reduce a little bit of throttle, maybe a little bit of steering. Here now I'm going towards the inside, more throttle. So I steer the car again a little bit with the throttle, or it's just like the play with throttle and steering. And you see, don't have to be hectic. It's all about staying calm and relaxed and not pushing things over the limit. And this, by the way, not sure if the speed is really displayed pretty much correct here. I have no idea. It says 80 kilometers, but that's maybe also due to the wheel spin and so on. And you see here, it's hard to keep up the visibility with all the snow that's flying right and left. And funny thing is also, I tried to do that in the other way, so I can do that as well, but I feel a little bit more comfortable doing that counterclockwise, because probably it's a left-hand drive car, so you have a little bit more connection to the inside of the corner or something. And now you see no visibility left here. And yeah, with all the practice I have over the years, I can also really hold this drift almost forever. That's definitely a lot of fun. By the way, here in the race mode, car shifting to the third gear after a while when I hit the ref limiter, and I have to put it back here with the shifting pedals again. So this speaks against the race mode. The sound, however, is speaking there again to third gear. And then sometimes I have a little bit, not too much torque, but we have the nice sound. That's speaking for the race mode. In the off-road mode, however, again, so I have to deactivate the ESC for that once again. So now in the off-road mode, I can keep it in the second gear all the time. And for driving this circle, that's definitely helpful, So you're a little bit more in control then, definitely. You have a louder sound on the one hand, but you hear the sound is different, because when we have the race mode again, the Akrapovic exhaust gets like this special sound boost. Here now at higher RPMs, this can on the one hand be helpful, on the other hand, it depends on on your driving technique as well. It of course doesn't sound that relaxed here, so you can also do it with one hand. You see, when I hit a little bit more RPM, I have to correct a little bit more with the steering wheel. When I do it in the third gear, I tend to be a little bit more cautious, more calm, let this torque work for me, and be a little bit calmer on the steering wheel. So definitely interesting driving technique differences. And yeah, sound-wise, race mode is always cooler. But again, this off-road mode offers you more flexibility, and I hope you're all also enjoying this here with us when we're driving all the way sideways. Yes, I admit it, I held the microphone in direction to my feet, and it sounded a little bit more spectacular when I was walking in the picture. Yeah. Anyway, now to the conclusion for today with the VW T-Roc R. First of all, It's a performance compact SUV or crossover, yes, and it makes sense in a way. You sit a little bit more upright, still want to have some performance. So more combination of comfort and performance. That's the basic sense of the car we already found out in our dry driving review. Exterior-wise, it has a strong front, still has a crossover wheel arches, so it still gets the crossover look, but of course it's a little bit lower than, and so it is somewhat similar Golf-alike, so to say. Interior-wise, looks quite good. It's straightforward as for using everything. It's a very easy to control vehicle. That's good. We see there are some shortcomings as for the hard pack materials inside of the door and the dashboard, and also the infotainment system where it can only display the map on one side. So I think that's something they should work on. Again, when you have a base T-Roc, you can maybe understand that because they also don't want to exceed the pricing. Yet again, especially when you have a high-priced T-Roc or a T-Roc R, even if it's a little bit less expensive than a Golf R, still that's something, at that price point should be included. Other than that, especially those R seats with the fabric and the Alcantara we had in our earlier car, those are really very good and they fit also very well in the car when they have a little bit more upright seating position. So you do have some more comfort than in a Golf. Driving wise, of course, both cars come somewhat in the same direction because they also share a lot of parts technology wise and so on. Same engine, same transmission and so on. Yet again, there is some difference because you sit a little bit higher, and on dry road, the Golf R is faster, yes. But it's really interesting that here on those conditions here, this one could be the better car because then again, with leaning in the corners, you have an advantage like with the rally vehicles. They also have softer suspension, whereas on dry racetrack, you put a harder suspension. Then again, with the off-road or all-wheel drive system that rules torque a little bit earlier to the rear. That's of course very helpful. And then you're a little bit more flexible as for the off-road mode, which also again boosts the rear torque and reacts a little bit better and so on. Well, but race mode, there you still have a little bit better sound when you have that one activated. Which one would I pick still here for the track? I mean, here, this car actually makes more sense than the Golf R, and you can actually also drive it faster, or maybe even easier, but still the Golf R feels a little bit racier because of that lower position, and that's definitely a matter of preference. I'm not sure. I think because this lake here, for me, belongs to the Golf R somehow still, because I've been driving the Golf R here all those years. Maybe I also have a stronger emotional connection to that for this case then. But for most customers, this car could make more sense. Also, of course, for the everyday driving life. Yeah, but at the moment, the MK7 Golf also has those soft touch materials on the inside. So, to me, an interior is also very, very important. So that's why I could maybe still go for the MK7 Golf R. Let's see how that one will look like with the MK8 Golf R, because next year, when we're back right here, probably we will have that phone for you. So stay tuned here on Autogefuehl. I hope you really liked our insight for today. We had a lot of fun drifting on the lake for sure. I hope you enjoyed that as well. And also check out the dry episode from Nice with this vehicle. Check out the snow episode from the Golf MK7R. So hope to see you there. And of course, everywhere with our other reviews. Thank you so much for tuning in today. Thanks to Jonas for all the camera magic. And see you next time.